Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Friday, May 29th, 2020, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. Alright, guys, well, I am going to continue with my series on the quote unquote giants, or large hominids, as I like to call them. State by State, the only series on YouTube that I know of that goes through the accounts of the Giants state by state. And up next is California. And California has many, many accounts. And you see in this first one here, for a picture that you're familiar with, the San Diego Giant was found around shortly after the Cardiff Giant, 20 years after or so, whatever. But it's said to be a fraud. But you're familiar with this picture, so whether it was a fraud or not, I don't know. But I'm not going through that account because it's a familiar one. I wanted to go through others that I thought were more interesting. But you can see there are many, many accounts in California. California is just rich in accounts of the quote unquote giants or large hominids. So there's quite a few, and I tried to cherry pick as many as possible. A lot of them are short. I want to try to get through them. I picked a lot of them out because they were of some interest to me. So pay attention because it's often the details of these things, and what if you're certainly if you're making up this story, you're going to make up a lot of details. But it seems that many of these accounts are very credible and were overseen by professional academics from several I mean, many of the accounts we heard, let's say 20 to 30% of the accounts that we heard of while going through this series here were accounts where professional academics were involved, or institutions like the Smithsonian were involved with these things, and evidently were credible. And I've read quite a few of these accounts in the Bureau of Ethnology reports from those times. That at least a few that I've read were certainly accounts of large skeletal remains. And at that time it was considered unusual, people of unusual height. That's why it's unfair to compare it to today. It's an unfair comparison because you can't compare it to the people of today. We've grown 10 centimeters since the 1800s. It's only fair to compare them of people of average stature of that time. And the people of average stature of that time considered people that were 6'6" in height and higher of people of unusual height. Whereas that might not be considered that tall today, back then it was because of the average height in general. Okay, so it's not a fair comparison that they draw from when they say these things, like they were slightly more robust, like the Humboldt Museum that houses the Lovelock Cave artifacts. So let's go through these accounts in California here. Try to get through them as quick as possible. There's many of them, but I try to cherry pick out the ones I thought that had interesting facts that you guys might like to hear about. So let's go through them here. Okay, so this is Kern County 7-foot race of giants. A race of giants, skeletons which are believed to be those of the primitive race which inhabited Southern California, have been discovered in the heart of the oil fields near McFarland in the region of the Arling Steinberger, now a dry lake. Skeletons have been found in a remarkable state of self-preservation, the soil being so charged with alkaline salts and petroleum that it is acted as a preservative. The skeletons found under a mound are of a race of well-developed brain, the heads being well-rounded. They use implements of stone and lived in mounds. lived in mounds. The most striking feature is that this race was one of giants, 7 feet tall. Okay, so here's where this thing gets very interesting for me because, again, here we are in California, as we heard about in Washington State and Oregon, reports of these mounds, okay, and no telling of a race of mound builders in the western part of North America here. Just nobody says anything about it, but evidently, from what we gathered from all these accounts, that there was some sort of mound building culture on the West Coast, near as we can tell. And not only that, many, many petrified remains, mummified remains. I'm not sure if they're getting those two confused or not, or maybe they're saying this, they're the same thing or whatever, but certainly conditions, as we heard before, and that also in Galena Canyon, for instance, that the conditions in the dry desert there often are very good for just natural mummification taking place. So here we're hearing of mound builders. They say they lived in mounds. I don't think so, but we're going to hear more about mounds in California. Again, a mound building culture that you never heard about from the West Coast. Okay, when are they going to account for that? Or is it, they just erase that from history as well? Okay, Giants graves in California. New race of men dug up with stone implements unlike any others. Some of the skeletons are those of men measuring no less than 7 feet and perhaps more. Femur bones, already sent to the university, measure 21 inches in length. The skeletons represent a most astonishing race of people who probably inhabited this country thousands of years ago, said Mr. Steinberger. Some of the skulls are large with high foreheads and well rounded, while others are ape like, retreating from an inch above the frontal bone, with the top of the head flat and with but small space for brain cavity. So who knows what they're talking about here, but it seems like these are two different kinds of things, like the vaulted cranial type and the sort of sloped cranial type. Are we talking about two different classes of giant humanoids from the past? Maybe we are. Those are things that have to be considered. Okay. And when was this from? A lot of these accounts are, this is 1922. A lot of these accounts that we found on the West Coast are from the 20th century, not so much in the Victorian times, or at least even close to the millennia there. Um, so, you know, I don't know, but a lot of them were in the 20th century. And, even, you know, up into contemporary times, we've heard of these things, including one on Galena Canyon in the early 2000s. Martinez skeletons more than 7 feet, bones of a historic race. Anthropologists intensely interested in the discovery of Indian skeletons in California. New indications that California was once inhabited by a race of gigantic Indians was furnished when sewer diggers on Ferry and Howard Streets in the heart of the business district of Martinez, California, uncovered an Indian burial ground with skeletons measuring more than 7 feet. Several skulls and one well-preserved skeleton are to be given over to the investigators of the anthropology department of the University of California. The skulls and skeletons are declared to be of a highly important and scientific value. Discovery of the burial ground has revived an old Indian legend that an immense treasure of gold nuggets was interred with the body of a chief of the ancient tribe of the giant Indians. So convinced are the residents in the truth of this legend that great crowds have thronged around the sewer diggers, largely hampering their activities, and more than a score of persons have applied to the municipal authorities for positions on the city's sewer digging crew. According to the ancient Indian legend, the vast gold treasure was buried in close proximity to where and it's cut off. A lot of these articles are cut off. A lot of times that's all they have. But this is 1921, another one from the 20th century. And, who knows about these legends? The Indians, and the native peoples of these regions obviously came well after the giants. San Clemente 6.5 and 7 foot giants dig up skeleton in San Clemente, California. Skeletons of five gigantic Indians unearthed in an Indian burial ground near this place are being viewed by hundreds of curious spectators today. Two of the enormous racks of bones are about 7 feet long, while the other measures more than 6.5 feet. The skeletons were found in an unusual depth under the burial ground of the Tamal Indians. So here they found these giant skeletal remains, these large skeletal remains under a burial ground of Tamal Indians. So indicate, the great age of them, but then the Tamal Indians obviously knowing this was a burial place, including their dead there. So who knows how closely related these people are to these other people in the past, the giants. And if they interbred at all, which certainly seems the case, and I think that many of these mummified remains, what they find of a woman and child, are often, this was, that there was stillborn and the mother died during childbirth, the infant died during childbirth, and this is why we find these interments because of the interbreeding of the giants, quote unquote giants or large hominids with regular sized people, and these things were bound to happen and often. Okay, and this is why they find these things over and over again. These women buried with these infants. Okay, I'm assuming that these are probably you know, difficulty in childbearing because of the, trying to combine the two different DNAs at different points during the timeline that we don't know anything about, and it seems to be more complicated than anybody might think it might be. So, under the burial ground of Tamil Indians who inhabited this section before the invasion of the whites, trinkets and ornaments of unique pattern were found with the skeletons. I wonder what that unique pattern was. This is 1909, East Oregonian. Again, another 20th century. Malibu Canyon, 14 skeletons, 7 to 8 feet. Discovered skeletons of 14 prehistoric Indians. Remains of giant race are found near Santa Monica Beach. Special dispatch to the call, Los Angeles, July 8th. 14 skeletons of giant Indians, supposed to have roved this section of centuries ago, have just been dug from the sands of the beach on the Malibu Ranch, just north of Santa Monica. The smallest skeleton indicates a stature of 7 feet, while several of the Indians must have been at least 8 feet tall. The discovery was made by 3 Santa Monica men camping at the mouth of Malibu Canyon. The skulls, teeth, and bones are in an excellent state of preservation. Many relics of an extinct race have been found in the same locality, but no skeletons of such size ever before have been unearthed. So again, it just shows that how disconnected people were in certain parts of the country. They didn't have a big picture of all these accounts that was sort of correlated and put together and should have been by the Smithsonian, who we'll see again in these accounts are busy buying up all these skeletons, taking control of these sites, etc. Yet no comprehensive study was done of these things and something put together that we can understand. And why would that be? Canchula Canyon, 7 foot petrification. Again, many petrifications was interesting to me because I sort of related to the Thunderbolts Project, Electric Universe, and that they feel, and among these circles of people, feel that the North American continent was hit by these electrical discharges from space sometime in the past, and maybe even more recently than we think, and it was just hammered in these parts of the country where we find yet many petrified remains. And according to some members of the Electric Universe and Thunderbolts Project, petrification can be an electrical process, okay, that causes these things. So no wonder why these people were probably all killed in these cataclysms that were going on that we know about from many, many people who do research along these lines, like Randall Carlson. He is 7 feet long, weighs 600 pounds, and a perfect stranger. Fresno, California. The petrified body of a man has been brought here from Cantua Canyon, about 60 miles from town. The body was discovered by two men named Packwood and Barrett, who were building a dam. Part of the foot was exposed, and when the whole body was exhumed, it was found to be wonderfully preserved. The body lay in a rock covered with earth, parts of it being buried to the depth of 12 feet. The body was straight and measured 7 feet in length. The man was physically perfect. The face is clearly defined, the nose, eyes, forehead, mouth, and chin being natural. The neck is long and rests on muscular shoulders. The arms are long and shapely, the left being folded high on the breast, with the hand resting near the throat, while the right comes diagonally across the body and rests on the stomach. The hair is gone, but the ears are clearly outlined. The hands are perfect, the nails and wrinkles in the skin of the fingers being as natural as life. The same may be said of the feet, the tendons showing the contraction familiar to the physicians in the cases of death from strychnine. The body weighs about 600 pounds. Cantua Canyon is dry most of the year. The indications are that the body had been buried for ages in the same canyon as a petrified forest. The body is supposed to be of an early Spanish explorer. A glance at the petrification as well as the character of the discoverers preclude the idea of any deception like the solid Muldoon giant fraud in Colorado. The curiosity will be sent to the California Academy of Sciences, and whatever happened to it at the California Academy of Sciences and what did they determine? Okay, but it's just very interesting to me that many of these petrifications happen in California, where probably a lot of electrical activity occurred and seems to be evidence of it nearby. Stanford, 6 foot 9 inches petrification, another petrification. Joseph Schlesinger, who resides near Stanford, writes to the River Press particulars of a wonderful discovery he recently made in an unfrequented mountain near his residence. The discovery consists of a petrified man with all his limbs in a perfect state of preservation. The body stands by a massive boulder, of which it seems to have become a part, and cannot be removed without considerable labor and expense. A tiny stream of water flowing from the spring above falls directly upon the head of the body. After passing over it, it loses itself in the surrounding rock. The body measures 6 feet and 9 inches from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet and is well proportioned, the chest and limbs being of ponderous width and size. The features are of a severe Roman type, surmounted by a broad, high forehead and a luxurious growth of hair, which is as firm as rock itself. A beard reaching to the waist completes a picture which inspires a feeling of awe and reverence in the beholder. Certain hieroglyphics are cut upon the rock, a true copy of which Mr. Schlesinger promises to send us. And what were these hieroglyphics? This is in 1890, I think, and what were these hieroglyphics? A man with a long beard down to his waist? Well, that doesn't sound like native peoples there. He's a Roman type. Okay, 6 foot 9 in the rock. Are we talking about a statue, maybe, or built in, or a relief in the rock, maybe, and not a petrified person? But again, it's hard to say. And I've said before, maybe some of these things are actually statues that they've dug up from some previous civilization that we don't know anything about, just somewhere along the timeline that we don't know anything about. And they're just statues and reliefs from some time period in the past we don't know anything about. People with beards who are gigantic size. Santa Cruz Four Giants, 8 feet tall. Okay, so this talks about shell mounds. We've heard about shell mounds in other states before. And it's not just simply refuse mounds, although it may have been, you know, perceived as refuge mounds later on by investigators and maybe even the native peoples there, but they weren't refuge mounds at all. Even though its shells were very valuable to native Indians in some cases, especially here on the East Coast. Okay, so that might be a considerable value to be buried in one of these shell mounds, especially when they were importing them or exporting them around the country to all these various tribes. When they variously dig up all of these mound people and whatnot, they find all of these artifacts and things from way distant lands. California Shell Mounds by R.E. Dodge. Near my home in California, about 5 miles above the city of Santa Cruz County, and right on the coast, is one of the largest shell mounds I have ever seen. It is about 270 feet long and 90 feet wide. It's immense. How high it has been cannot now be told, as most of it has been removed by poultrymen who use it to haul it away by the wagon loads. This practice has since been stopped by the owner, but some of it is still hauled away. I've made frequent trips to this mound for archaeological research, but the results are few in number. The mound seems to have been the kitchen dump of the Indians, and a perfect specimen is rare. Arrows and scrapers are most numerous, most of these being broken, but I once found part of a spear which must originally have been 6 or 7 inches long. I have also found part of a mortar and a broken rubbing stone. The most numerous objects in the mound are stones the size of a peach. These are not worked and seem to be merely water-worn pebbles from the beach. Most of them are chipped and broken on one side, and were probably used for crushing shells, as most I have found were lying near a large stone, though there are many scattered through the mound. The shells compose the mound are mostly mussel, though there are many other kinds, and quite a few bones of birds, crabs, and seals, which are in a very good state of preservation. Near the center, where so much has been removed, they are in small pieces, but near the edges, which are undisturbed, they break off in chunks. These can be broken up, and the shells composing them are in good condition. Old timers tell me that the Indians used to come from the hills to this place, gather and cook the shellfish, and throw the shells on the heap. At this time, the mound was about 20 feet high. That the Indians also carried mussels back to the hills is proved by the abundance of shells in the ground, and every little cave has its complement, as if they used them for ovens. Shell fragments in caves seem to have been burned, and the cave walls are discolored by fires. Okay, so were they using these shells as a type of terra preta? Okay, you have to think about these things because of the pottery being used down in South America as terra preta, and other places in the United States, for example, where there's evidence of this, and also of all the quartz and silicon in the soil culture and soil mixtures of places in the Northeast. Okay, another different kind of terra preta. Okay, at, out at about 4 miles above this mound are two more. One is so old that the shells have mostly decayed. This one is situated on a bluff near the edge of the ocean. The other one seems to be more extensive and was discovered by accident. About 10 years ago, they were grading down the road which runs through here, and a skeleton was discovered in a shell mound. A little deeper, more were uncovered, about 35 in all. They were badly decayed, and many dropped to pieces when exposed. I have a skull in my possession from this group, which is in first class condition. It has a very low, receding forehead, and the teeth are much worn. These skeletons seem to have been buried right in the shell mound, which is now covered by about 2 feet of soil. I dug in several places in the immediate vicinity and always struck a shell at from 18 inches to 2 feet deep. The shell layers seemed to spread evenly over a large space and was about 2 feet deep. I found no stone artifacts and only a few bones of what seemed to be a dog or wolf. The skeletons, when found, had a few shell beads buried with them, but nothing else. About a mile from this spot, while excavating for a railroad, it is reported the skeletons of 4 giants were discovered buried in a sitting position with their faces to the west. I have never been able to verify this report, except I saw one of the skulls in the possession of a man living in Santa Cruz, and it is truly a giant, being fully twice as large as any skull I have ever seen, and it is a pity that the whole skeleton, which was said to be over 8 feet tall, was not preserved. Okay, so again, these burials in a sitting position, these in this case facing west. Okay, who knows what that's all about? Okay, but again, further down in these mounds, okay, which may have been mistaken later on by native peoples to be um, refuge mounds, but actually weren't. The shell portions of the mound were there to form the mound and give it extra reinforcement. Okay, as we found about the mound builders, they just didn't simply build with dirt. Okay, get that out of your head. They lead you to believe that, but that isn't true. Okay, this is all the mounds were built with a certain engineered material. Okay, an engineered soil. Okay, this is what the Native Americans and Native peoples and their ancestors, the giant, large hominids. Okay, this is the sort of knowledge they possess, an advanced knowledge of agriculture. This whole thing about hunter gatherer stuff is mostly fiction. Okay, while people were moving around or whatever, they had to form camps and hunt and whatever. They weren't growing things while they were temporarily there, but they were there frequently throughout the hunting season. It's just a hunting lodge. Okay, you're making these mistakes. Okay, and the hybrid peoples, the giants and the native people hybrids later on, were the meat eaters. Okay, all the people that came before them were mostly vegetarian and apparently ate a lot of shellfish and the bounty of the sea and didn't eat any sort of land animals or any red meat, and all had possessed knowledge of agriculture. This whole hunter gatherer thing is nonsense. You can't be developing corn 8 and 9 thousand years ago with working your way up to that. So the knowledge of agriculture had to go back way further back than that to develop corn, something we can't develop today. Somehow they did in the past, running around barefoot and with grass, skirts on somehow. But we can't do it today without 100 million, $200 billion of research to do it. San Francisco Peninsula. Recent excavations have indicated that the peninsula south of San Francisco once was inhabited by a race of giant stature. Professor Harold Heath of the Zoological Department of Stanford University, according to a statement just given out, has unearthed about 2 miles south of San Francisco several skeletons of men who were of unusual height. A prehistoric village covering nearly 2 acres has been the scene of Professor Heath's investigation. Stone hammers, bone awls, and ornaments found by his party indicate that their owners had attained considerable advancement in artisanship and civilization. And by the way, a lot of these areas in California, or some of these areas in California, where you find these large hominids, are also where you find these mysterious stone walls. Where have I heard about that before? I don't know. Okay, I know this is running long, guys, but I want to get you through these accounts because there's some very interesting stuff in all of these, and California is rich in accounts of the giants. Ukiah, California, giant found. Bones of prehistoric man. Skeleton of a giant found in a rude sepulchre on Pine Ridge. Ukiah, California. Discovery of the bones of a giant in a rudely excavated hole in a limestone rock on the western side of Pine Ridge has aroused considerable interest among local anthropologists. UN Briggs and Frank Patton unearthed the remains of what appeared to be a prehistoric man last week while out hunting on Pine Ridge. It being quite warm, the hunters had sought a shady place at the base of a tall limestone cliff. They sat for an hour or so, enjoying the soft breezes wafting from the valley beyond, and Briggs, in poking around in a hole in the rock, unearthed several bones. They appeared to be those of a human being. Upon closer scrutiny, it was discovered that the cavity in which the bones had been deposited was evidently the work of human hands. The walls had been cut with a sharp pointed instrument, and the entrance to the tomb or sepulchre had at one time been closed up. The hunters examined the tomb closely and found a number of bones of the feet and the hands and a portion of the skull. The remains will be sent to the Smithsonian Institution, where they will be summarily filed in G for garbage or just forgotten about. But what kind of pointed tool were they using to carve out the limestone? Was it a harder stone that they used to do it with, or was it some of these alloys that they were able to make with copper? And again, near the people in Galena, in New Mexico, there, the rancher there and the people there found evidence of some sort of smelting going on. There was no gold to be found in the area, but evidence of smelting. What were they smelting out there? Okay. Were they smelting iron, as some researcher in the past put forth in a book suggested by C.W. Saram? Santa Rosa giant skeletons. This is the many islands where they found all these large skeletal remains. Indian cemetery, Santa Rosa Island, containing abalone shells, radiocarbon dated at 7,070 years. Tops of skulls were painted red. Several skeletons measured over 7 feet tall. Photo courtesy of Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, 1959. So he's late in the 20th century. Santa Rosa Island off the coast of California were found greater ancestors to today's weaker mankind. 7 foot tall skeletons would seem that they were far from short legged primates. These greater ancestors are proof against common ancestry. No animal human hybrids, no world tree, no connections proving a bottom up designer, aka Mother Nature. Just greater ancestors through genetic entropy becoming weaker descendants. These greater ancestors reveal a higher neoteny, a greater maturity of mankind that correlates with all living species following the same trend of devolution. This is what Chris L. Leslie believes, the moderator of the Greater Ancestor site here. And I've been saying this sort of stuff myself for a while. Contra Costa County, more than 7 feet tall. Important historical find in California. Digger Indians baked pottery, tall skeletons on Earth. Ethnologists will be interested in a discovery made by Assistant Curator William Altman of Golden Gate Park Memorial Museum, namely the fact hitherto denied that the Digger Indians of California were acquainted, at least, with the rudiments of pottery making. Until now, no pottery of Digger Indian manufacture has ever been found, says Altman, and therefore be highly valued the find he made in an Indian burial mound at Concord in Contra Costa County. From an excavation made by workmen in the employ of the Port Costa Water Company, have been found a large number of Indian relics of great age, including the specimens of crude pottery already mentioned and the skeleton of an Indian giant more than 7 feet tall. The skeleton is now in possession of Dr. Neff of Concord, who's mounting it for exhibition. The pottery specimens consist of charm stones of baked clay of spindle shape and pierced so that they may be suspended from the neck by cords. In addition, there are a large number of knives and arrowheads of obsidian or volcanic glass, which is extremely rare in this part of the state and leads to the belief that they were brought down by Shasta or Modoc Indians and traded for other things with the diggers of Contra Costa. No doubt, no doubt, there's so much trading going on. A huge trading network was developed in the ancient past, and many of our highways today run along these highways that these large hominids or giants of the past made in their trading networks, which were much in the past. Okay, everywhere in this country, and that's where the giants have been so far, folks, in every single state in the United States so far. Okay. A striking peculiarity about these arrowheads is their shape and pattern. They are notched in a very painstaking way with jagged division and resemble very much some of the weapons of Filipino savages. A stone mortar and several phallic pestles carved with considerable skill and precision, stone sinkers for fishing, and artistic pipes made of soapstone, together with a quantity of wampum, are among the souvenirs secured by Assistant Curator Altman, the donor being Joseph Hitman of Concord. The mound from which these relics were taken is close to the railroad depot at Concord. The work of excavation is still going on and more interesting finds are looked for. Okay, so again, all right, this mound building culture, this is 1911, another 20th century find. Okay, again, it seems almost identical to the Adena and the Hopewell and the Mississippi mound buildings and all these things, and no mention of a mound building culture on the West Coast. You're hearing about it for the first time in these accounts of the giants that I've done so far on the western states here, folks. Where is a comprehensive study of these things that has been, undertaken by anybody in the past? You hear of all these academics, professional academics from various organizations, universities, Smithsonian, okay? They looked at all these things, whatever. Where is our understanding of these things that's been laid out for us? with all this research and time that was devoted to this, apparently at a time where maybe the Smithsonian wasn't even so biased yet. Okay, and how did that all come about? Politics? Maybe. The Bridal Veil Falls Mummy. In 1895, miners working near Bridal Veil Falls, California, discovered the tomb of a woman whose skeletal remains indicated that she had stood 6 feet 8 inches in height. In 1885, miners discovered the mummified remains of a woman averaging 6 feet 8 inches tall holding an infant. The mummies were found in a cave behind a wall of rock in the Yosemite Valley. This mummy is now in Ripley's, believe it or not, Orlando Museum. The Martindale dummies seen here were acquired by Ripley's in February 1998 from Dr. Larry Cartmel. The mother and child mummies were discovered in Yosemite Valley, California in 1891 and first displayed in Scranton, Kansas in 1899. The origin of the Martindale mummies remains a mystery, measuring an incredible 6 foot 8 inches tall. 6 foot 8 inches tall. The mother is the tallest female mummy ever discovered, believe it or not. If you take a look at the two pictures of the mummies, which is supposed to represent two different stories, they look like the same mummy. Perhaps the Yosemite story was the true and accurate account, and the Bridal Veil account was possibly an error or fabrication. Whatever the case, the conclusion is the physical remains do exist. In a rare instance. 9-foot skeletons, 14. Giant skeletons found on coast, Los Angeles, California. William Derbyshire and Jack Stoneberger of Chicago and Robert Derbyshire of Santa Monica contractors have unearthed the skeletons of a gigantic prehistoric man at Santa Monica Beach. The skeleton was over 9 feet in height. Hard work uncovered 13 more similar skeletons. 3 perfect specimens were brought to Santa Monica for exhibition, and scientists who have examined them say that they undoubtedly are hundreds of years old. The skulls have the formation of an Indian head with high cheekbones and other pronounced characteristics. In every case, the teeth are practically intact. Okay, so there you go. Okay, again with these perfect teeth, which is, just unbelievable because, very few people today, even with all our health and medicine and dentistry and everything else, very few people today have all their teeth. San Nicolas Giants, ghastly Indian relics, 1897. Bones of a giant race on St. Nicholas Island, again on one of these islands. After nearly 3 weeks sojourn on the barren island of St. Nicholas, a party of relic hunters reached Long Beach, California, loaded with skeletons, skulls, and ancient implements and ornaments of stones and shells, the remains of Indian tribes which inhabited the now almost desert waste in bygone ages. There were 11 in the party which left Long Beach in a gasoline schooner, San Clemente, for San Nicolas Island, which lies 65 miles off the coast of Santa Barbara. 4 days were occupied in the journey to the island owing to the dense fogs, and after landing, the party of the schooner returned to Long Beach, and the explorers were left to their work. The party found 87 skulls buried in the sand of the island, were only able to secure 3 entire. They made one excavation 20 feet square in which they found 9 skeletons in a crouching attitude, as though men, women, and children had been buried alive. In another place they found the remains of hundreds of bodies that had been burned, and some of the party believed that cremation was practiced by the ancient people of the island. Positive evidence was found that the island was inhabited by 2 or more different races in a dim past, one of which was of great size, a peculiar characteristic being gigantic jawbones. Okay, so here we hear about them postulating about cremation and seem to carry on to the native peoples who do a lot of cremation, and this is why there aren't as many skulls and skeletons and everything from the past, because only the nobility and the noteworthy people of these tribes and ancient peoples and giant hominids of the past were buried in these sacred burials and ceremonial burials, with few exceptions. Okay, except there are other instances, ceremonial instances, occasions where more had to be buried or for whatever ceremonial reasons. So often they suppose, Again, human sacrifice all the time. But there's no telling if that's true. It's just natural disasters, catastrophes, attacks, whatever it might be. Okay, but this is why not a lot of skeletal remains are found, because they practice cremation. You see, and that's why there's always these charred things found every place. Maybe the annular mounds were places where they burned the bodies of their dead. Who knows? I don't know. But they certainly practice cremation, and that's why not a lot of skeletal remains are found. It's rare to find them. And where did they all go? They were sold and lost, and went to all these universities and got lost somehow or whatever. I got to call a few of these places myself, find out what happened. Catalina Island, 9 foot 2 inch skeletons. A report just published in the San Diego Union gives some details of an announcement by Professor Ralph Glidden, curator of the Catalina Museum. This is talking about the Catalina Islands, which they had archaeological research there earlier, but then again by this Ralph Glidden fellow in the 20th century. He claims overwhelming proof that a fair-skinned, fair-haired, highly intelligent race of great stature lived on Catalina Island off the southwestern coast of California, perhaps 3,000 years ago, and that his excavation of a huge cache of skeletons, domestic utensils, urns, wampum, etc., is quite out of the ordinary class of Indian discoveries. A skeleton of a young girl, evidently of high rank, within a large funeral urn was surrounded by those of 64 little children, and in various parts of the island more than 3,000 other skeletons were found, practically all the males averaging around 7 feet in height, one being 7 feet 8 inches from the top of the head to the ankle, and another being 9 feet 2 inches tall. That's awfully big. Okay, and why was this young girl buried in an urn with these 64 other little children? Perhaps they died of some disease. There wasn't a lot of diseases or the same kind of disease, but I'm sure there were diseases enough where things occurred, okay, that we don't know anything about, because you need to study this whole subject more. It's understudied, and if anything, we're putting it together ourselves here on this channel by going through the accounts of the quote-unquote giants or large hominids state by state, getting our own ideas about it. We're forming our own opinions about it. We don't need the Smithsonian or any other institution. They're all liars anyway. Santa Catalina giant skull, and show a picture of this skull and some of these odd stones here. Ceremonial stones scratched with the sign of the cross show Spanish influence. Do they? Or is the sign of the cross was in the Americas and influenced the rest of civilization? You know I'm a big proponent, because of the age of the sites found in South America and throughout the Americas now that go back tens of thousands of years, okay? And one of the anthropologists in South America, as we found it in Charles C. Mann's book, said maybe Sumeria is not the cradle of civilization. Maybe it's in South America. They said it. I didn't say it. They did. Okay? They're thinking that, not me. Okay, this is 1932. Popular Science, Ralph Glidden's work there. He found these tablets there with the giant skull with crosses on them, right? And I found plenty of double cross, two, like the Orthodox crosses in the volcanic escarpments when I was out at Petrifaction National Monument. I might post some of those videos again, the ones that I feel are fit to show on this channel. But I was there, folks, looking at petroglyphs, a lot of them, secret ones too. Gigantic jawbones in the Channel Islands. Two very different races waged war on the Channel Islands. One was a race of giants whose jawbones were so large they could slip over a full-grown man's head. One of the skeletons was of a gigantic individual in which a long-boned spear point was sticking out of his leg bone. His skull was shattered by a large round stone used as a war weapon. A spear had passed through his heart, dealing a death blow. It was thrown so hard it pierced through his shoulder's blade. This account comes from a Mr. Longfellow, says the San Francisco Chronicle. The archaeological establishment found a treasure trove of artifacts, skeletons, 9 entire, while hundreds had been burned, 87 skulls, weapons, and instruments. There were ornaments and jewelry made of shell and stone on San Nicolas Island, which is about 65 miles on an island off the coast of Santa Barbara, California. Okay, so if they're making shells for jewelry, okay, then shells are not garbage. You understand? 1897, Newark Daily Advocate, Newark, Ohio. Fresno, a petrified woman. Mr. Ian Barrett, a Council Bluffs gentleman who left the city last fall and spent the winter in Fresno, California, and signalized his stay there by the discovery of a petrified giant, which has attracted the attention of the scientific world, reached the city yesterday with another extraordinary petrification. He has rented the room 537 Broadway, formerly occupied by Hart's Jewelry Store, and has placed the wonder on exhibition. It is a perfectly formed woman lying on her back, with her hands peacefully folded across her breast. The corrugations of the skin on the hands can be traced to the minutest wrinkle, and every muscle is as natural as life. The face is classic, clean cut, and handsome, and the whole form conveys the impression that the woman, while peacefully sleeping in rosy health, was suddenly turned into stone. The drapery about the form has fallen away and petrified in little tufts, giving a ragged appearance in some places. The hair, eyelashes, finger, and toenails are clear and distinct, the former being petrified in tufts. A portion of the upper lip has been cut away, revealing two teeth to which the enamel is still adhering. The petrifaction was found by a little boy within a few feet of where Barrett found the giant. It will be on exhibition here for 2 weeks. Ladies will be admitted from 2 to 4 and will be shown the wonder by, say, allow the ladies in first, huh? Good business decision there, but what interesting, another more petrified remains, that of a woman. You see the eyelashes, everything in there. How interesting is that? I leave you guys to make up your own mind about these things, but far too many accounts in the United States to be just dismissed at every single one of them being a hoax, like Dr. Ken Fader, the fraud, would like us to think. Can't you a 7-footer buried? The Fresno Mummy, Stanford University, and the Smithsonian said to be bidding for it. I wanted this story in there because here we have these institutions bidding for it, spending money on it, and they, acquired these things, but then what happened to them? Disappeared into the black hole. The Fresno Mummy attracted thousands to see it Saturday and Sunday. Last night, the announcement was made that the mummy had been buried at the county's expense in a vacant lot of the public cemetery. Fears were entertained that it would be stolen, as it was considered valuable. Offers reaching great sums have been offered but declined. The undertaker announced that it had been buried secretly in an unmarked grave to prevent grave robbers from stealing it, but the facts in the case are different. Information has been obtained from a trustworthy source that the mummy has not been buried and will not be. It is known in inside circles that a gentleman from the Stanford University is here negotiating for the body, and a man representing the Smithsonian Institution at Washington is also bidding for it. The mummy will go to one place or the other. The opinion of doctors is that it will remain in the present state of preservation for years. It is the most remarkable case of its kind known. Okay, so just to show you that they were paying good money for these things, and that's anywhere. And that's many, these are the accounts that we know about. How many to figure that we don't know about? This had to be researched and dug up by people like Fritz Zimmerman and Jim Vieira and everybody else. And Chris Leslie here, and by whoever is involved with researching the Giants, L.A. Mussolini, whoever. But, whatever happened to all these things that went to the Smithsonian and, Stanford and everything, what happened to them? What'd they make of it? Can to a can, your mummy stolen, so it finally got stolen. That's what I wanted to show you here. Another turn has been taken in a famous Fresno Mummy case. It was last night stolen from D. Moffin, the health officer of this city, in whose hands it was placed for safekeeping. Not so safe. The mummy was found by William Elkington 10 months ago in Cantor Canyon, several miles west of the city. Elkington surrendered it to the coroner for the purpose of an inquest. In the meantime, an offer of $2,000 was made for it by a museum, and the coroner refused to give it up to Elkington. The case was carried to the court, and in the meantime, the mummy was placed in the hands of Dr. W.T. Maupin, who retained it till last night. The Superior Court decided that the mummy was a human being and that Elkington, being the discoverer, did not thereby become owner. It was not declared who the owner was. According to Dr. Maupin, announced that he would hold the mummy in the interest of science. He prepared a dry catacomb for it, like those of Egypt. This morning, the door of the tomb was found to be broken down, and the body was gone. It is supposed it was carried off by someone who wishes to place it on exhibition. Kind of hard to place something stolen on exhibition, but probably in some other state somewhere where nobody would pursue it because the law wasn't like it is today. But in any case, guy, I noticed this was a long one, but California has so many accounts. I just had to go over all these things and comment on some of these things, and you draw your own conclusions from it. But again, California rich in accounts of this quote unquote giants or large hominids, and very many interesting things. And again, we hear about the mound building culture, petrification, mummification, hieroglyphs, burial positions, where they were buried, how they were buried, all these sorts of things, and with the involvement of universities and the Smithsonian and other organizations, professional people, whatever happened to all this stuff was all buried and taken away from us by parties intending to do that. Okay? So, in any case, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was long, but I had to go through it. And if you did like it, please hit the like button. And we're getting close to the end of this thing. Just a couple of states left, but so far, accounts of giants in every single state, everywhere. And we'll move on to international giants after that, too. Okay, so that's up and coming videos, guys. All right. All right, folks. Anyway, Budcat7 signing off. Peace.